Okay, this is part 2 of the 1909 to 1958 Lincoln wheat cents. And in this part, we're going to go over the actual varieties, the double dies, the RPMs, and the over mint marks that you can find in the Lincoln wheat cent series. I'm going to go over the images a little bit. We'll explain them a little bit. You know, just remember some of these dates do have multiple double dies, multiple RPMs. I'm not listing them all. We're looking at the ones that are worth something if you find them when they're circulated. And you know, some of these are more common than others. That's one of the things you have to consider when you're looking at these. So let's get started on it because it is kind of lengthy. I do cover a lot of ground here, so stay tuned. You know, as we go through these, just remember I'm not covering every single variety. I am covering varieties that are for common dates and that are still worth a little bit of something if you do find them when they're circulated. They're obviously worth a lot more if they're uncirculated. And there are some of them that have multiple varieties, multiple double dies, multiple RPMs for that same year. And that's very important. So I encourage you to go to CoinFacts, PCGS CoinFacts, go to coppercoins.com, Konica Variety Vista, and Wexler's Double Dies. Also, NGC has a Variety Plus. Visit those websites when you find something or you think you found something or you want to know more information, and search and research. The more you read, the more you're going to understand this. The more you read, the more you're going to know what to look for. So just take this as a guide, as an introduction into what to look for. I'm going to try to go at a pace that is for most people. If I'm too fast, try to pause it. If I'm too slow, maybe you can speed it up. So anyways, let's get started on looking at these. First, you have 1917 double die of verse. And if you look at this image over here on the right, you can see where there is actually a split in the serif of the 9 and the 7 and in the we trust. Next is the 1925. This is the double die of verse as well. And you're also going to look for doubled area on the coin. And it's very important to note that when you're looking for the thickness here on the 9, don't be confused by a coin that has contact marks or it's smashed from being in circulation. 1925 S over S, this is the RPM, and which is a repunched mint mark. They used to hand punch into the die, and sometimes they would have to repunch it. And when you're looking, you can click on the images and you can look a lot closer. I'm going to do it on this one, and then the rest of them you can do that on your own time. Some people mistake coins for over mint marks, like a D over S or a S over D. Now we are going to look at some over mint marks. They were starting, I think, in the 40s is where they start in this video. And when you see all of those are the only dates that are known for over mint marks. If you think you found it on another date, then you're going to have to find some mint documentation that documents that happened, because dies that were going from one mint to the next were documented. Here's the 1927 double die of verse. And as you can see, if you want to look real close at the coin and the diagnostics for that double die, then you either can scroll over it and it'll show an enlarged area, or you can actually click on the image and download it onto your screen and it'll show you a little more details. A 1927 D over D. It's another D over D mint mark. It's hard to see in that image, but you can see a little bit there. You can see where the D stem. Like I said, you just click on the image and you can see it just a little bit better. I try to show you, it's kind of hard to see some of this, but it's a good idea to look at coins with about 5x, 10x magnification. Sometimes you want to go 20x, it depends on what your eyesight is. I click that little arrow down here and it'll download it for you a little bit better. And there you can see the D over D a lot better. 28S, it's the large S. We'll take a look at this one here. They usually have comparisons for you to look at, and that way you can kind of get an idea. But this is the large S on the 28S. As you can see, it's just larger. You can tell when you look at a normal version here. A 1930 D over D. It's another RPM you can see here, and the little blowout on the right hand side over here. That comes up over here when you're scrolling over it, and you can kind of see the little part of the D above the normal D. And here's a 30 S over S. Here's a little up close to it. It's a little hard to see in that, but I suggest clicking on it. Then you have a 34 double die of verse, and it's another thing to basically click on, and you're looking for, you know, any thickness in the lettering, any split serifs, things like that that would hint or suggest that the coin is a double die. The Liberty, In God We Trust, and a date are key areas that you look for. It's the 1934 D over D. Obviously another RPM, and you can see here a little bit of the D, the remnants of the lightly punched D there are a little misaligned as well. And you have a 34 double die of verse, and as you can see, the thickness in the 3 and the 9, those are very important. You just want to kind of look at your coin closely, try to match it. There's going to be different die stages. It's going to be harder to identify when a coin has smashed areas on the lettering or smashed on the date. That's one of the things that makes this very difficult to identify. A 1935 double die of verse. It's another, you can see the actual doubled areas on the coin, has a little bit of a spread there on those. So it's important to look for that on the date. And a 1936 is pretty well known, but there are multiple versions of this. You have the type 1, 2, and 3. So you want to get in and research a little bit. I'm not going to go too much into which types, but they do have a comparison of the different types here. And you can kind of look at them, and you know, it's kind of the varying degree of the spread. But you know, if you find a 36 with a double die, it's going to have some value to it. It has to look like one of these. And here's some other pictures of the 36. Kind of give you an idea what it looks like when it's circulated. And this is the type 2, and this one here is the type 3, and it has a little less doubled. It's not as strong of as far as the separation is concerned, and that's how you know the difference. This is going to be the one that's going to fool a lot of people. They're going to see, you know, contact marks, and they're going to see this and that on it. They're going to think that it's actually the double die when it's not. Now then you have the 38 D over D, which is another RPM. You can see it there in the little blowout image to the right. Then you have the 38, and this is the triple S. This is S over S over S. You don't want to confuse this with a coin that is just a blob mint mark that's been circulated with contact marks. You actually want to look and you want to see the 3 S's on this one. So I suggest, you know, you go in here to PCS Coin Facts and you click on it and enlarge it so that you can kind of study it over and compare it to your coin. It's a 1939. And this is a double die of verse, and it has just a little slight doubled areas, and it's kind of difficult to identify this one, but you can kind of see it on the Liberty here. Some of these are not your atypical double dies that you see a lot, your class 1. Some of them are other classes, and that's one of the things that's important to note. They're not going to all look the same. You have the 1941. This is a double die of verse. And like I said, over here it shows where you're looking for the actual doubled area on the Liberty and in the Trust, the main areas that are more obvious to help you identify it. Then you have the 1942, a double die of verse, and you have 4 different double dies for this. So you want to click on each one and check them out. I'm going to click on one of them here so we can take a look at it. Like I said, there's some of these that just have multiple double dies. And there's only certain ones that are worth the money. Some of them are worth money. Most of these are going to be worth a little bit of a premium. But you know, like I said, when you're looking at these, you want to make sure that you're looking at the correct double die, the one that would be worth sending off or actually worth looking for when you are looking at these. And the 42 D over D, and another one is the 42 D over D. And usually these are, you can pretty much see these even when they're circulated. Sometimes you might have to take a little bit of a toothpick and maybe clean a little bit around the mint mark to kind of make sure it's not debris that you're looking at. That's another aspect of this. And then of course you have the 43, and this is a steel cent. And here is the D over D. It's a pretty obvious, mint mark. A lot of people mistake this whenever they see one that's replated or they see die wear. Replating and die wear can cause it to look like it's doubled. It can cause it to look like it's an RPM when it's not. So you got to be very careful for that. Have someone check it out for you. Here's another one, a 1943 S. This is the double die of Verse, and it's the FS101, and you can see on the 9 and you can see on the 1. And one of the things about this is that the mint mark was punched after the die was already doubled, so you're not going to have a double mint mark too. If you're seeing a doubled mint mark on these and it's not an RPM, then you're not seeing a double die. You're seeing die wear or strike doubling. These coins were kind of hard on the dies, so you've seen a lot of anomalies, a lot of striking anomalies on these coins. Here's a 1944, but there's a few select that were struck on steel planchets, and they do have a good value to them. They're going to weigh 2.70 grams. They will stick to a magnet. So that's one thing to look for, the transitional errors here. Here's the 1944, and I'm showing the whole chart here because there are several, the D over D, and then you also have double die, and you also have a D over S. And we're going to look at this over mint mark. But just remember, you actually have, in the 1944 D, you have the D over D repunch mint mark. You also have a 44D double die, and you also have a couple over mint marks. So we're going to take a look at this. Now, like I told you before, when the U.S. Mint moves one die to another branch mint, that is documented. If it's not known, it probably doesn't exist. A lot of people mistake these. Here's the image. This is the D over S. Okay, it has to look like this. A lot of people are going to mistake these. But like I said, if it's already known and you can match it with this, a lot of times you're going to be dealing with a circulated coin anyways, so it's going to be kind of difficult. But like I said, it's got to look like this. Just do your best. But if you see another date and nobody has documented anything about a D over S or an S over D, then it's more likely it's not going to exist. It's just the dies were, watched. You don't just let a die go somewhere without putting down on paper and permissions were granted for that die to be used somewhere else. Otherwise you get into counterfeiting. It's very strict on this. So here's a 1945, and it's a double die of Verse to look for. Don't have an image for this, I apologize. But for 1945, it doesn't have the mint mark, which means it's Philadelphia mint, but look for that double die. And in 1946, is the inverted mint mark. Sometimes when you're looking for this, you might have to go to the other listing that they have, like for the red. They don't always have an example that is circulated. I noticed that on here. So that's very important. Here's your inverted mint mark. It's going to have the larger part of the S upside down, and it'll be at the top. So that's one of the things to look for there. Here's the 1946. Now here's another over mint mark. It's a S over D. Like I said, you want to look for ones that are documented here. You're trying to find them in other dates and mint marks, they don't exist. Unless you find some mint record, or you contact the mint yourself and say, look, did you ever have one for this year? You can try that. You can send your coin to them. They'll look at it for you. 1947 is a double die of Verse for that. You want to look for that on here. You can see a little bit of the thickness on the date digits. And like I said, you always want to look at the perimeter of the coin, look at the In God We Trust, look at the date, and look at the Liberty. And sometimes you look in the eye area, and some of them will have double eyes, what they call double eyes. There's a 1947, it's an S over S. Don't have an image for this one. There was one that sold for great collections. You can always click on that, you can take a look. Sometimes you can find it. Also is a 49, a D over D. This is a pretty obvious one. You can see that in the image. And like I said, I try to have image for all these. Sometimes you have to go to other sites like maybe Copper Coins, sometimes Konica Variety Vista, or even NGC's Variety Plus. That's typically the way you have to do it. It's a 49S, and this is a double die of Verse. I'm going to look for that. And also you have the 1950 S over S, and you can kind of see it a little bit in that image. It's not completely obvious. You don't want to look really close. You want to look inside the curves of the S, or the weaker punched S. It's a 1952 D over S. It's another one you want to look for. Another documented Denver mint that went to the San Francisco mint, and they actually tried to remove the S and then punched a D over top of it. Then you have a 1953 D over D. That's pretty obvious. You can see it to the left there. You have a 1954 DDD, which is a triple D. I've had these before. Sometimes you can find these in rolls of coins if you look really close. They're not worth a whole lot of money if they're circulated, but it'd be something worth finding. Like I said, down here it says Mint State 63 went for 68 bucks. And then here's the 1955 double die. Now there are several double dies for the 1955. This is the one that's worth the big bucks. Okay, it has to look like this. You don't want it to look like this one here. This is not a double die averse. You know, this is one of the things you got to watch out for. Don't even buy into the poor man's double die. This is all die deterioration. It's not a double die. Has to look like this right here. That's your 1955 double die right there. And a 55D is a double die for this one. And some of it's the double it in the eye. You have to just look through. Copper Coins has the listings on all these. All the 55 double dies. And here's another 55, and it's the RPM. You can see it's a little bit of a thickness here and a little bit of a split up here in this area. And you'll see that if you look really close. And then a 55 S over S over S. And you can get in there and you can see that one. What you're doing is you're looking for, you know, 3 S's on there. The main S is going to be really strong and the other 2 are going to be weak and just a little misaligned. Then you have the 1956 D. And this one has a D over D, a couple different versions of it, actually 3 total, and you can click on those, and probably we'll go up here to the uncirculated version, and the one that's worth the most is your FS508. So we'll look at that one. They'll have a little bit of value when they're uncirculated, sometimes not so much when they're circulated, but uncirculated ones tend to have it. And it's not real obvious to see in this image here, but you know, like I said, you can go here, you can go to PCGS Coinfax and click on it, kind of study it out a little bit, see what you need to look for. And then this comes to one of the #1 double dies in the Lincoln Cent series, period. And that is a 1958 double die averse. There's only 3 that's known. The last one sold for $336,000. And here you're looking for this. This is what it has to look like, folks. It can't look like anything else. There's other double dies for almost every single date. They're minor, but this one here, if you want the one that's worth the money, you're looking for this. This is the kind of double die you're looking for. So there you have it. There's the ones that I recommend looking for. You know, do a little bit of more research if you like. I apologize I didn't have images for some of them. You know, the videos get pretty long after a while, and you know, I know people kind of drop off in the middle of most of them. You know, but if you know, sit down and study this out, you can make notes. You know, just write down some of the things, maybe the dates and the mint marks. That way you can know what to look for, because there's just so many things in the Lincoln Cents, and you don't want to look for everything. You want to look for little things that are going to make it worth the money. So please like, share, and comment, and have a great day.